Hello everyone, say hello.
Hiya,
And who are you, sir?
I'm Rich Kinchin and I'm the Green Party candidate for Daresbury, Moor and Sandymoor in these 2022 elections.
Between Sandymoor and Norton at the moment, but
Yeah, we're right on the boundary. I think the bridge itself is the boundary between Daresbury Moor and Sandymoor, that side, and then Norton North this side, where we're actually standing the wonderful Gary Cargill here in Norton North as well.
oh yeah.
So yeah, and with Ian in Halton Castle, we're coming for East Runcorn.
Let's actually pay some tribute now to Andrew, because he's stepping back, isn't he? And what's going on?
Yeah, so Andrew was elected as the first Green councillor back in 2021, and during the all-out elections, everything was up for grabs. It was a great victory, but it has taken its toll on his family life, and his work, which is very specialist, is actually moving over to the US. So rather than him stand again and then have to cut a 3-year term a bit short, he'd rather pass the buck over to me. Pass the baton rather than pass the buck.
I was going to say pass
Let's
the
go
buck.
pass the baton.
It sounds like he's
'Cause
like pulled your pincher against the wall and said, "Come on, let's get this."
Well, there was some arm twisting involved, but no, I'm actually really happy to be sort of taking over from him, and he's done a lot of really good stuff. Really shaken things up, where decisions in council chamber would just be waved through, rubber stamped. He's went, hang on, actually, let's think about this. Let's look at the impact it's going to have. Let's look at how it's going to affect the surrounding area. All those difficult questions that a lot of the other councillors don't like being asked.
No.
That's our main trick, really.
Yeah.
Because, and I'm sure we'll go into this later, but we don't have a whip in the Greens. We're kind of independent. We have sort of party structure, we have party policies that we follow, but how we go about those is up to us. We are never given any sort of 3-line whip. We're never told, you must vote this way.
Okay.
And so when we vote, or when we bring up a point, it's always because that's what we think is best for the residents that we are representing, the people we're representing, not just the party colours that we wear.
Yeah, and I've noticed that you are willing to work with across political lines, across. I mean, even me coming here today, talking to me, and being involved in the community. And this is what I wanted to say about Andrew. Without his support, and even with the get-together we had right here, his support was really valuable to me, and it made me feel like there was someone that's listening.
Yeah, he's shown that we can work cross-party. We are happy to work with. Yeah, the council is still going to be majority Labour, but rather than 95%, hopefully down to more like 80%. So you get that more cross-section of voices, and cooperation is key. But sometimes there are lines you have to stand by, and I'm sure we'll come on to the developments nearby later, which are vehemently against what we stand for, yet being waved through by Labour, who are supposed to be for the working man. But it's all about balance. Sometimes it goes into mitigation, reducing impact rather than eliminating. But as a councillor, you've got to represent the people that elect you. And when a ward votes Green, when they say we want someone different, we want someone new, we don't want the same old, that is them telling us that, look, we want to shake things up, we want things questioning, we're not happy about the current direction. But then I also, and Andrew particularly does it really well, is keep an open inbox.
Yes.
Or, rather than open door nowadays, got to be careful, especially with COVID still around. But an open inbox where people from across the borough can email in to us in the Greens or to specific councillors, specific members, to say, this is what's going on, this is what I'd like to have said at council meetings, this is what we want to be heard about. And if there's one person going to email through and say it, there's probably 10, 20, 100 people all thinking the same thing. Or it takes that one person brave enough to send that email out. to say, look, this is a problem. This needs dealing with. Right, we can then take that as Greens to council meetings and say, right, what are you going to do about this? I have particular bugbears that have annoyed me since I moved here in 2014. And it doesn't feel like 8 years. But
Doesn't it? I mean it's gone by quick?
Yeah, it feels really like home. I really enjoy Runcorn. And I really like living here. And there's things that bug me a lot, that I'm sure bug a lot of people.
But quietly, because there's a lot of people who just want to change, but they always like to sort of stay in their bubble and not say any word. Is that what the Greens are trying to do, to sort of stoke the flames a little bit?
Yeah, we want to know how everyone wants the borough to be improved, to be better. There's one of the phrases I hate is, as I was always told it as a kid growing up, always told it, was there's always someone worse off than you. That doesn't make a poor environment or a poor situation better.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you can't go for better. I work as a scientist. I'm a new product development scientist. So I'm looking at, as a job, at ways to make products that my company manufactures better. Ways to make things more efficient. So we get a better return on better profit margins, so we can reinvest, that sort of thing at a company level. So it's literally my job to try and make things better through my small way in a laboratory. And if I become a councillor, I can do it for the whole borough, but with that open door for people to say, this is what we think the council should be doing.
Yes. And because, like you say, you've been here 8 years and you've seen the little things stack up, the little things starting to get to you, and as someone who does development and stuff and making things better, that must have been like, I mean, why have you not done it sooner?
Yeah, well, I only got involved in the Greens a couple of years ago. Mainly as a big sort of green wave came in, in like 2019. I was like, oh, these guys are actually real contenders now. They're not just a fringe party. They are real contenders making real change, real difference. We see it in the House of Lords quite regularly, where our fantastic green peers, yes, we've only got 2 of them, Natalie and Jenny, but I've spent ages chatting with Natalie. She's fantastic, at a protest over in Liverpool.
Oh,
she's got such a level head on her shoulders. It's a pity she had to disappear off to Manchester, otherwise we'd have gone the pub.
Well, she sounds like my sort of woman as well now.
Oh, she's fab. And if you look on YouTube, or especially on the Green Party Facebook page, you see her standing up for the people of Britain. Say, questioning, querying, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Especially with the current stuff on Clause 9 of the Nationality and Borders Bill going through Parliament, where the Tories have just rejected most of the Lord's amendments, and if they are successful, which they may well be, there'll still be opposition. The Tories are wanting to be able to remove someone's British citizenship and not tell them about it, creating the most anti-refugee country in Europe, if not the world. And in fact, we're probably already there, according to a couple of studies. And yet the Tories are determined to whack it through. It was Green who spearheaded the fight to get Clause 9 removed in the House of Lords, and succeeded.
Yeah.
And they got thwarted by the Commons, but that's parliamentary procedure.
It's back and forth.
It's cool. It's wonderfully called parliamentary ping pong.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah, and that's what it's going through. But it shows, and especially if you see like Caroline Lucas in the Commons, she's standing up for what is right, even though she's 1 MP in 650. She makes her voice heard far more than, say, Mike Amesbury or Derek Twigg, the 2 MPs for this area. She is heard far more, far often, and makes a much bigger impact as a Green than the 2 Labour guys.
Do you think that's because the Greens have still got a fight in them? Because the older parties like the Conservatives or even Labour, once they've got power, there's nothing really to separate them? They're just there for keeping power, aren't they? Whereas you're fighting for power.
Yeah, but we've also seen, like up in Scotland, Greens are in government, and in Europe and Germany, Greens are in government. The Greens in government in Germany were the very first country in Europe to stop importing oil and gas from Russia when he invaded Ukraine a month ago, as of time of recording. It was just a month ago. Germany's Green Party, as part of their coalition government, immediately went through, because they're in charge of the economic ministry, said, right, no more Russian oil and gas. This is the final straw. We were phasing out to a staged process, as all Greens will fight for, renewable energy rather than fossil fuels. But they immediately went, nope, that's it. Massive change very quickly. The Scottish Greens are in power now, and they're doing lots of things like looking at the Gender Reform Act.
Yes.
And as a member of the LGBTQ community myself, and with quite a lot of trans friends, it's heartbreaking to see what they go through. The Greens in government in Scotland are going to try and make it easier for trans people to be recognised for the gender they identify with. Because it's not just oh, I fancy being a girl now. It's a real hard slog to recognise, and a fight to recognise it within yourself. I mean, I didn't come out until I was in my 20s, because I was fighting with myself, saying, no, you've got to be straight, that normalcy. It's even tougher for trans people, and they are faced with so much more hate. I get it for being gay and a green. I get it. But I stand by it. It's who I am. But it should be easier for people to be recognised as the gender they want to be, as the gender they identify with, what they feel. And so they can be true to themselves, because it doesn't hurt anyone. Yet, in England, in Westminster, they're on about making it more difficult. It's one of the most difficult places to be trans, and yet Greens in power in Scotland are trying to making it easier. Tories in Westminster are making it harder.
Well, they're slower on the uptake, I suppose, aren't they? With most things.
Yes, yeah. There's a lot of problems with politics in the UK. Real problems. I'm studying law. I'm studying my masters in law.
Let's say that now. Let's just get to know you first.
All right.
Because the thing is, right, you're a man of many talents. And the other day, I was speaking to Ian, and that interview went on longer than I thought. It went on for an hour and a half. Interesting guy. But now I've got to speak to you in all these different variations of what you can do. How am I going to fit that in? I mean, just go through with the audience what you know and what you can do, because it's extraordinary, the brain power you've got.
So, do you want to wait till this plane's gone by?
Helicopter.
Helicopter.
They're looking for...
Who's done what? Who's done what?
Home's England, go away!
So, I grew up in Derbyshire. A little Derbyshire village on the edge of the Peak District. The town was a dump, but I was in a village just outside. And it was great having all this green space on my doorstep. It was... well, just like this, as we can see behind me, lots of green space, a little bit of industry. It's an old mining area, but growing up around there made me realise how lucky we are to have such green space on our doorsteps.
Yeah.
But I went to university and I studied chemistry, getting my bachelor's degree in 2012. And searching around for jobs, I ended up coming over to Holmes Chapel and then to Runcorn with work. Worked in various laboratories around here as an analytical chemist, and gained a lot of different experience in different industries, including pharmaceuticals, the e-liquid industry. Trying to improve that was a nightmare.
I bet.
Yeah, I was compliance officer for a company for a couple of years, and that was a tough slog. But everyone was safer, the products were safer by the end of it. It's all about that safety aspect. I now work in bulk chemical manufacturing, surfactants, which you'll know is the active bits in conditioner, shampoo, very liquid, and that's the sort of thing I'm trying to improve now. My skills are mainly as an analytical chemist, very logical, look at the facts, see the data, make a conclusion. Lots of troubleshooting, lots of how can I make this better. Next week I'm getting a brand new instrument coming online I can start to develop a new method with that will save us time, save us solvent, so saving money as well, and reduce waste, and be cheaper as well. All better stuff. The method we've been using currently has been 20-30 years old. I can reduce the amount of solvent we use, the amount of waste we generate, the amount of hazardous waste we have to handle and deal with, thus helping protect the environment a little bit. Because all those little bits do add up. Yeah, of course. Yeah. But as I turned 30 last year.
Looking good, sir.
Thank you. I've got such a baby face.
You have.
Such a baby
but
face.
It works for you. It works for you. We need young blood.
It'll hit me eventually. It's hit my brother. I shouldn't be rude about him though. But
hello there.
Yeah, hi Simon, if you're watching. So I was turning 30.
Yeah.
Last year, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? COVID pandemic was hitting. I was just stuck in the same old rut. I wasn't progressing anywhere. I think for a couple of companies I was too disruptive.
No.
Because I question. I push for that improvement. I worked over in Widnes on a temp contract earlier this year for 6 months. The transformation in that lab that I brought in, they were really disappointed to lose me actually. I only left because I was on a temp contract and my new one was permanent.
Yeah. Could you not have offered you an incentive?
They were. They couldn't offer me permanent, which is what I need, that stability. Yeah. But brought in raft of improvements, lots of continuous improvements, because things can be better. No need to just accept the status quo.
Oh, isn't that runcorn in a nutshell?
Unfortunately, because the majority of councillors currently sitting on that council have been in position for well over 10 years, some 20 years. Yeah. Like Rob Pohill, who's just been awarded the MBE. Yeah, he's done some good stuff, and yeah, he deserves it. But he'd been sat on that council since 1998. I was 7 years old when he was elected.
Blimey.
That's a long stint.
Yeah.
It's time for a bit of change.
And you become complacent and want the status quo. But also, these plans like this tend to sort of get, just do it, Yeah,
just wave through. There's been Halton and Warrington Borough Councils, with Warrington and Halton Green Party, we cover both boroughs. They've both had to fight in the past court cases from developers when they've refused planning permission. Now, developers have very deep pockets.
I'd say unlimited pockets.
Yeah, very, very deep pockets, because they make billions.
All the way down to hell.
And they make so much money on them, they can fight a lot of legal cases. The council can't afford to. They're stretched. Their budgets are really tight. And it's like Halton's got a £21 million deficit for this next financial year, probably. It's really tough. So they can't afford to fight court cases when developers threaten them with court action for refusing the planning permission. So the Labour councillors are scared of declining planning permission. We've seen it, how Labour have betrayed the residents of Warrington with the Peel Hall development. That got us so angry. Yeah. They're going to put houses right next to the M62 and the M6 at that junction there. No one should be forced to, well, no one's going to be forced to, but no one should be given the opportunity to live there, because the air pollution is going to be horrendous. The noise is going to be horrible. I remember house hunting in Warrington back before I moved here in 2014. A house in Warrington that was, again, similar distance that Peel Hall is going to be from the M62, just a bit further west. And I wouldn't have been able to have my windows open during the summer. No. Because the noise drive me nuts. I dread to think the air pollution, as we're filming this, and I look after our social media on at Warrington Green Party on Facebook, and I've just put out about a warning from DEFRA that pollution across Merseyside this weekend, beautiful sunny weather, we're in the very high bracket.
What's causing that to travel cars? People are going places more than they used to be.
Yeah, it's a combination of commuting, power plant plant emissions, factory emissions, everything we pump into the atmosphere. The weather patterns that have all been kicked out of kilter, like North Atlantic jet stream, the air is not moving quite so much. Pressure zones have changed because we have changed the climate. This pollution can't disperse, or it's being held down, and we're just pumping it up. So anyone, I feel really sorry this weekend for anyone with asthma or COPD. I've developed drugs to help with those years ago.
Hi, Walter.
Years and years ago, inhalation technology was my specialism, and they're going to find it really difficult to breathe because they'll be breathing in this pollution when you go up to places like New Brighton or into Liverpool city centre. Yeah. And there's a photo again. If you look on the Facebook page, the link links to a Liverpool Echo article. You can see the haze and smog from a photo taken up here in Runcorn. You can't see Liverpool because of the haze.
To be honest, I was at the castle just yesterday, and you can see it from the top of there. When you go, even though it's a clear day, it's there, isn't it?
Yeah, you think about air pollution, you just think of China, Japan, where they wear the face masks every day. Years ago, 2018, I flew to southern China via Beijing, and you could see a brown smog over Beijing and the blue sky above. It was also minus 10 degrees C. That was cold. That was cold. It was then, when I landed in Shenzhen, it was plus 32. Ouch. Yeah, that was warm. But you could see this smog. You think of it as in third world countries.
Industrial revolution.
Yeah.
You know,
but you don't think about it hitting Merseyside and Cheshire and Halton. But it is. It's there. We can see it.
I'll tell you what will help with that. More people in houses.
Well, more affordable housing will help more people work from home. But the biggest thing is getting rid of fossil fuels. Like Fiddler's Ferry, I worked next door to that. The whole site next door where I worked was covered in coal dust. So I dread to think of the particulates in the air. That's what causes the smog. It's particulates, which once they get into your lungs, they ain't coming out.
They cause ailments like cancer and other long-running health conditions.
Basically block your lungs up.
Oh, okay. So like tobacco and nicotine.
Yeah, same as the tar in tobacco. Blocks your lungs up. But you're talking, you can't see them in the air. You see dust motes, but they're even smaller. It's like you can't breathe them out. They're so heavy. They get stuck in the bottom of your lungs. And we need to eliminate that. It's mainly commercial. So fossil fuels, and it's not even just locally, it's national and international.
Well, while we're on the subject, I know that Ian, and it surprised me really, he was very, very vocal and wanted tidal power to be implemented, which is something I always wanted myself, but I always thought it'd be against the green agenda because it's interfering with the tidal.
There's a way to do it without interfering, and we have looked into this, and it has been looked into in even more detail. The Mersey has the most powerful tidal force of any river in the UK. It's incredible. If you travel over the Silver Jubilee Bridge or the Mersey Gateway Bridge, you can see just how wide it is, and how small it goes when the tide's out, and how when it just goes boom.
It's just suddenly there, isn't it?
Yeah, it appears. It's a huge tidal force. There's a couple of ways of doing it. One way, which the Liverpool City region are looking at doing, which is called a tidal barrage, which is stringing up almost like mini generators across the Mersey, but that will hit downstream the ecosystem, and that will take about 10 years to recover. It will recover. Nature is resilient, but it will take far too long to recover. There's a way of doing it more up towards Crosby, where you can build a tidal lagoon, good couple of miles in diameter. Build a tidal lagoon on the side, and as the tide comes in from the Irish Sea, the water flows in past generators, generating clean energy, clean electricity and clean hydrogen to power hydrogen buses. And then as the tide goes out, it flows out again. Guess what? Reverse it. It flows out and generates energy
twice. I was going to say twice.
Off the same water. Yeah. And because it's on the coast there, in a particular spot up by Crosby, it wouldn't. There's not much of a natural ecosystem there, unlike the Mersey. We look at places like Spike Island and Wig Island, protected sort of ecosystems. It wouldn't impact them at all. There's no downside. Yes, it's more expensive to construct first off, but we're investing in the future of humanity. That's how big it gets.
Well, we wasted lots of money on HS2, which isn't happening now, is it?
Yeah, I'm on the fence with HS2. I do think the investment could have been better on the West Coast Main Line, which is just behind us, because it is Victorian infrastructure.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a train geek as well.
Yeah. Tech, we've got another one there.
Yeah, big train geek. In fact, tomorrow I'm up on a local railway, doing my final bit of training to become a signalman.
Sounds so. I love the idea of that. I really do. And the stuff that you like, it intrigues me.
Yeah, it's going to be entirely voluntary. Just putting trains back and forth, making sure everyone's safe.
Yeah.
Also being able to sit down, and if I'm elected a councillor, that'd be a perfect time to go through papers. As I'm studying for my law degree,
Check.
I can study papers, or just sit down and read a book.
Yeah.
I can do loads while I'm sitting there.
Plus, you get to gaze on trains.
Yeah. When I did a bit of training at one of the stations, I was doing the token exchange. Stood there with my arm out, waiting for the token to come alive, and when a great big steam loco, full-size Pacific wheel arrangement steam loco is coming towards you, and you are stood. It's basically the distance we are from each other. Coming down there, it's like, all right. I'm hoping this stays on the rails.
Yeah.
That's big. It's coming within inches. It's magnificent power. Yeah. There's big struggles with coal at the moment.
Yeah.
With them and diesel prices, but there's experiments going on with what's called biocoal, which is actually going to be produced from it's basically compacted coal dust, so just from waste that can then be mixed in with the other coal. And there are alternative ways of running these locos. In Poland, some locos were changed to run on oil. So it's a fine balance of maintaining heritage, whilst looking at the future. So if this biocoal experiment comes to fruition, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
It's all sort of thinking outside the box.
It is.
There's a big crisis at the moment because a lot of the coal is imported from Russia, and there's obviously a big ban on that now for good reason. So that's the core of it, really. Especially, the core of green philosophy is balance.
Balance, yeah.
We aren't just... it's not just all about the climate, all about the atmosphere, all about green, planting more trees. There's lots of strings to the bow. Lots of different policies. All about finding that nice balance where businesses and companies can make profits, and we have a good strong economy that's resilient to fluctuations like the Russian invasion and COVID. We should be able to be more resilient on the economy.
Well, look, the UK's never been good at preparedness. They always seem to be reacting to things.
Far too reactionary. And we're seeing that with climate action. It's all well and good kicking the can down the road. Oh, we'll do this by 2040, we'll do this by 2050. That's a bit rubbish when it's here now. In February this year, scant 2 months ago, we had 3 storms big enough to be named within 1 week.
Yeah, remember, it's one after the other.
Yeah, one after the other. That is the climate catastrophe hitting right now. And they all battered the northwest. They battered us here and across the country. And it was horrible to see the destruction.
Yeah.
And yet, our Labour Council in Halton is planning to build 800 houses on floodplains just over there.
Not to mention Daresbury itself and...
Where's the sense? Where's the logic? Where's the balance? One of the developments is is touted as 2 to 5 bedroomed homes. Nearly 1,000 2 to 5 bedroomed homes. Of this nearly 1,000 homes, how many do you reckon are 2 bedroom and how many do you reckon are 3 bedroom?
I reckon probably under 20.
3 bedroom, there's going to be about 85.
Okay.
So, 2 bedroom?
Okay.
Just the one.
And why is that? Is it because they can fit it in somewhere?
They must have squeezed it in so they can say we're building 2 to 5 bedroom houses. And the small proportion of 2 to 3 bedrooms will count as their affordable housing.
Let's talk about balance a minute, because we talked about balance. We're going to talk about the energy crisis in a minute, but when it comes to houses in Halton, what is Halton as a town? Is it, or Runcorn, is it working class or middle class? Should there be more social housing in development going on?
We have such a diverse range of people.
We do.
Hugely diverse. It's fascinating. And through my, I'm going to come to another thing I do, but through my bell ringing at Runcorn Parish Church, another thing to tick off, and at Daresbury, you meet a whole cross section. And one of the ringers I've taught to ring lives in Daresbury, lives in Moor. A wonderful house. She's really quite well off. Such a lovely lady. And I would not class her as working or middle class. She comes across very almost upper class. She's really nice.
I don't like using those labels, to be fair, but because there's such a range of people and a waiting list for social housing, I have to use those categories.
We have but we have people who are more what you'd arbitrarily call middle class.
Yeah.
But then you have people. I mean, Ian's ward is a real mishmash. In Halton Castle, in Halton Village, it is a bit more affluent. But then you've got Castlefields, which is traditionally working class. I live in the Old Town, very working class area. I don't know where I fit in that. I know I sound posh. I sound far too posh for this area, but it's because I
think it depends on whether you've bought your house, in some cases. But at the same time, people who own a council house, who've bought the council house, are they middle class? That's why I don't like using those terms.
I really don't.
But we have to distinguish between what's needed and what's not needed.
Yeah, we have lots of executive homes already in Sandymoor, but just been built. Beamish Place, Hatts Chase, they're all posh, quite nice homes. They're beautiful, to be fair. They are lovely, and I'd love to be able to afford one of those. I'd love to. So we have enough. What we don't have is affordable housing for the likes of me and thee.
Yeah.
We don't have 1 or 2 bedroom flats. We have some down in the deck in the Old Town. But
well, we've got let's look at social housing in a minute. We're having flats built near the shopping city now, or converted from offices, which are going to be terrible to live in, aren't they?
On paper, it looks good. On paper, it looks quite good. But I'm holding my breath because the reality is never quite as good as the dream. They will try and find ways around it to make more money out of it, which you get with more bedrooms, more money. We need social housing like that development over there at East Lane, but we need it across the borough.
We do, yeah.
And we also need to identify lots of other places where, like in the Old Town, where the old Nationwide is, next to Chambers. That's going to be changed into some more accessible living, I think it's going to be called, for retired.
Is that the same as on your ward? Were they building opposite the shop in Sandymoor?
Yeah, very similar. Similar. Lower level, only about 5 floors, so doesn't stick right up like the tower block further down towards the river. It is going to be more sympathetic. That's the sort of development we need. We need more of that rolling out across the borough. More affordable social housing. Because it's driving people into homelessness. It's driving people into poverty with rent going ridiculously high. Yeah. When I'm lucky enough to have bought my house about 5 years ago, Yeah, I got the deposit through an inheritance from my gran passing away, but that was what it was. That was the condition on the inheritance. I used this to buy a house. But my mortgage was £100 less a month than my rent, which shows just how daft rent is.
Yeah.
And that's a whole systemic thing with housing. So we need more council housing, more social housing, more genuinely affordable housing, not just what I term algorithmically affordable, which is when they play with the maths and it's supposedly affordable. It's affordable to someone earning £100,000 a year. Right, that's not truly affordable. We need much more of that.
Yes.
So that people can move out their houses. One of the big problems in Sandymoor is multi-car households, especially as Sandymoor is really not served well by buses. There's barely any bus stops at all.
Even before this idea, it's just not served well, is it?
No. Moor is served quite well by buses, but Sandymoor, where the majority of the population of my ward is served really poorly for buses. Ridiculously poorly. So everyone's got cars. So mum and dad have a car. What about grown-up kids? They have a car.
Is it 2.5 cars per house or something on average?
Yeah. Between 2 and 2.5 cars per household. It's ridiculous. And I remember a situation years ago when I was living at home, just before I moved out. I'd got my own car. My brother had got his own car. My dad had a car, and my mum had a car. Because the buses in rural Derbyshire were so rubbish. To get to where we needed to be for work or for university, we had to have a vehicle.
Yeah.
And I got mine just before I moved away, because I needed it when I moved away.
Yeah.
But we all had cars, all 4 of us, in one household. Now, luckily enough, we could fit 3 of them on the drive. It's a great big long driveway. Couldn't fit one in the garage, it was full of stuff. Because who puts a car in a garage nowadays?
Yeah, they usually are, aren't they?
Yeah. But when I'm going around Sandymoor, dropping leaflets through, or just walking around it, there's so many cars parked on pavements, parked on verges, or just on the road. It hikes up insurance to park on the road. You're more at risk of damage. But that's because our generation, and those a bit younger, can't move out because they can't afford to. That's the Tories' answer to this housing crisis. Live with your parents. I personally cannot do that. I can't do that. Yeah, relations with my family have broken down massively. But that's a whole other thing. It's also why I'm such an advocate for talking about mental health.
Yes.
And speaking and having those frank discussions and seeking help about mental health.
And being honest with yourself as well.
Yeah.
As we discussed before.
I've spent, 20, 30 years lying to myself. It was only in the last 5 years I've started to deal with it, and I'm much happier in who I am. But it's not an option for a lot of people to go back living with the parents. Because you've got your own independent life. It's a rite of passage to be able to move out. Back in their day, or in the day of a lot of our current councillors, it was an average. People's first houses were generally 4 times their wage. So it cost 4 times their wage. The average house price was 4 times greater than the average wage, which is a good proportion. It fluctuates at the moment between 11 and 17 times.
That's not sustainable.
So someone earning minimum wage is earning maybe £18,000 a year. Rent, bills, food take up 75% of that. Yeah. The tax doesn't take, because tax already takes about 25%. So how are they going to afford to put a deposit together for a house that is £180,000 to £200,000? How?
Well, look, I've been very honest on my channel about the difficulties I've had over the years. I mean, I've been so lucky that my rent has been well below market price for this long. But now she's sold, and she's sold for good profit. Hello, Bumblebee. We're not going to...
It's so rare to see bees out nowadays, actually.
Is it? Yeah.
Bee populations are declining at a ridiculous rate. Without bees, we wouldn't have any food.
Oh, I know. Cause it's
yeah,
a vital ingredient for everything, isn't
absolutely. And yet we are still decimating the bee population nationally.
Well, that's around here now, and then you've got all this land that's just teeming with life and birds.
We should be being swarmed with bees at the moment. It is their season. We should be being, get rid of them. But that's the first bee we've seen.
Yeah.
Well,
they usually start nesting in the old house.
Yeah, and they're fabulous things.
I love them. I love them to bits.
Yeah, they are the cornerstone of agriculture. Yet we are now spraying crops with a type of fertilizer called a neonicotinoid. Okay. A bug repellent called of the neonicotinoid group. Now, key point there is nicotine.
Yeah.
It's a variation on the nicotine that's in cigarettes. I won't go into the chemistry in too detail because we've not got all that time. But let's say it's a very similar structure. So the bees get addicted to it. They don't have anything else but that, and it kills off. It kills them because they don't eat anything else. They don't fly around for pollen. They just go for this neonicotinoid. It kills them. It is killing the bees. Now the EU keep trying to implement a ban on it. They keep being subject to loads of court action by the guy. Yeah, lots of lobbying and court action by giant corporations, including the guys behind like some Roundup, which is an appalling abuse of the legal system. But since Brexit, we're not bound by that, and so the Tories have taken an opportunity to kill our bees by authorising it this year, again.
See, these are the things we're not talking about. There's these little things going on that we're not talking about because we're all just distracted with something else.
Yeah, there's always a distraction, and that's Tory politics in a nutshell, by the way.
Oh, that's why they got Boris as leader, because he's a buffoon who...
Look over there!
Yeah. Oh, well, I just said something nasty. Oh, hang on, there's a swan coming up.
One of them knocked me off my bike years ago. Years ago, I used to cycle to and from work when I worked in Sandymoor industrial estate, which is in the Daresbury Mr Sandymoor ward. I used to cycle up along the canal. It was a lovely bike ride in the morning, especially on a day like this. A swan took exception to my bike.
Oh.
I turned up at work with a gash all down my leg.
So I am conscious of time. I don't know how much time you've got. We can speak up to an hour and 40 if you want.
I don't think your viewers will want about a 4-hour-long video.
And that's on each topic.
Yeah. But so if anyone does want to know more, I'm happy to talk.
As a councillor, let's talk about you as a councillor, because you're going to have a completely different style to Andrew, aren't you?
Yeah.
So describe you as a councillor. What would you want to do and what do you want to achieve?
So, what I want to achieve is proper scrutiny of decisions that are made. Because at the moment it's quite difficult to find out exactly what councillors are doing. There's no communication.
Well, between councillors or just in general?
Between councillors and the general public.
Oh yeah, we knew that.
There's nothing. So Andy's got a fantastic Facebook page.
Yeah.
That he regularly posts on. More when I give him a poke. And there'll be quite a bit more going on there in the month to come. As we start to push the transition and the campaign really gets going.
Yeah.
It's a really easy way to connect with people. Facebook, Twitter, you can see what decisions are being made, and Halton Council just fails massively at that.
What don't they fail on?
Have you seen that website? It's rubbish.
Not really, no.
Oh, it's absolute rubbish. But maybe it's not something... It's functional, so it's an investment for further down the line.
Yeah.
But it's that communication, and it works both ways. It should be a dialogue. There needs to be better ways for residents to tell their councillors what they want said, what they want, having done in their local area.
Yeah.
What they don't want as well. More consultations on things. A lot of the time, especially the consultation process, it's based upon objections rather than approvals. One thing I would look into, when I can fully look into a system, would be how the planning committee or any committee approves proposals. Like, so the developments over Wolford Farm and Daresbury Garden Village, they would rely on a sufficient number of people objecting to put any spanner in the works. The presumption is that yes, it can go ahead.
Yeah.
But really, shouldn't the presumption be no?
Should always be no, yeah.
The presumption should be no, this shouldn't happen unless you can prove to me that it should.
Okay.
Rebut that presumption. This is the law stuff coming in now, about rebuttable presumptions. Prove beyond doubt why this is an improvement, why this is going to benefit, and how the benefits outweigh the risks or the cons and the damage that is done to the local environment and the local community.
Yeah.
Moor and Daresbury are ancient villages, and they've just suddenly had Sandymoor, Daresbury Garden Village, latched on as brand new modern developments. Were the residents of Daresbury and Moor consulted on this?
Probably under the radar.
Very much under the table,
No,
under the radar.
right.
There's probably a quiet page hidden away somewhere on a website that's a bit of a tricky way to find round.
Yeah.
To lodge objections, and even then those objections can just be ignored. Again, look, we chatted about Peel Hall earlier. Hundreds of objections were lodged, a campaign group against it, and that wasn't enough to stop the Labour betrayal and the approval of it.
Do you mean this is the thing? What we've been worried about on our group is that are they going to work with us just because it's a political gain for them in the short term, or is it going to be a systemic, a systematic?
I'm a bit of a cynic, so I reckon, and we've seen through a couple of leaflets that Labour have been putting out, saying we'll keep an eye on it. We'll keep an eye on these developments. That's passing the responsibility. That is absolving of responsibility. That is saying we're going to keep an eye on it, which could be translated as, yeah, we're going to watch these all go up and do nothing about it.
And then say we provided these much needed homes for your area.
But they're not. They're the wrong type of housing for the area. So say the application for Daresbury Garden Village comes in, and I'm on the planning committee. It's right. How is this going to benefit Runcorn and Halton as a whole? How is this going to feed into the local economy? How is this going to link up with the town centre or the shopping city and boost the local economy, promote local spending? How is this going to solve the social housing problems we're having in the borough? The answer is it's not going to do that at all.
In fact, it's going to add to those problems because most of these people are buying them from outside the borough and coming in.
Really well connected with the M56, which translated means these people are going to come and go to work, probably Manchester or Chester or around that area, via the M56, and never come in to the old town or shopping city. They're not going to do anything for the local community.
No.
They're not going to be part of Runcorn at all.
No.
They're not going to build into this local economy so it can be reinvested in to improving infrastructure, filling potholes, doing further roadworks. We've seen attempts at filling potholes, but
just
attempts. That's another bugbear of mine. Whole council just do not get the little things right. Fix the little bits and then do the big bits, like this big flashy station quarter.
Yeah, I went there.
Fantastic. It's brilliant. Is it going to really help the local economy? We'll wait and see. Could the money have been better spent on maintaining our roads, improving public transport links, like the X1 bus service from Murdershaw to Liverpool, that express bus service, an absolute lifeline for many people, is on the verge of being completely cancelled as we speak. Again, it's been run into the ground. Yes, it's been subject of quite a bit of vandalism, especially through Murdershaw, which is really disappointing. So I'd love to work with police on how we can reduce antisocial behaviour in the borough.
Well, that's probably the one area that hasn't been properly regenerated yet and given a new lease of life, like Castlefields. No, these other places have had a bit of a spruce up, haven't they?
Yeah. I mean, the old town has just been left to rot, basically, for 30 years, at least.
At least, yeah.
Needs to be regenerated.
Well, it needs to find a voice first. It needs to find what it's there for, and then run with it. Because Old Town's got so much potential.
Absolutely.
With its location, with its, even with the bridge, with the way the bridge looks.
And it's so historic.
Yeah.
I mean, Runcorn has been extant for over 1,100 years, over 1,100 years of history in Runcorn. Dating back to the first church on the site, which we can date back to the 950s. We really don't take advantage of it. No. If you don't look it up, how do you know of the old transporter bridge? We could bring in tourists to the area, big style. Link in with Catalyst Museum, because again, the science of this area is amazing.
Innovation with them over there, and everything.
So many fantastic scientific discoveries and scientific works were done here. Yeah, they've had a hugely detrimental effect on the environment. Lots of alkali pumped into a place like Wig Island, but if you look at likes of Runcorn Hill and Heath Park, that has been very well regenerated. If I ever go up there for a walk, it's a lovely escape.
Haven't been there for a while.
It's really nice. I used to wander there quite a lot. It's really good for mental health.
Yeah.
And that's a brilliant example of how an area can be regenerated through a green space. Whenever I walk up there, I'm never alone. There's dogs exercising. There's people just out for a walk with their partners or with their families with kids. It's a fantastic place. We need more of that. And yet, this council is just going to tarmac over it. It's probably the nearest big green space to the old town.
Yeah.
But it's about a mile out. You've got the promenade, which you could turn into a bit of a green corridor. It's just covered in muck. Because Halton Council don't seem to care at the moment about places like the old town, like Halton Castle and Castlefields, Murdershaw. They just can't be bothered. So even though I'd be representing Daresbury Moor and Sandymoor, which has its own challenges, its own needs, I would also speak for everyone across the borough. Because I don't have a party whip to tell me what to do. I won't be in a majority forced to vote one way or the other for fear of losing a party whip.
This is one thing I brought up with Ian, because I was asking him, is it a good freeing place to be in the Green Party? Because you're sort of straddling both worlds. You're able to sort of be yourself, but also represent your party.
Yeah, we're very much in the centre. Yeah, if you look at the political spectrum, we are more sort of centre-left.
Yeah, it seems that.
Yeah, especially as Labour's often going a bit more to the right.
I don't know what the hell they are at the moment.
Tories have gone so far right. Ugh, it's mad. We can occupy a middle ground. We're a best of both worlds. We understand that there are needs for the economy to be strong, where compromise should be made, to enable local business to flourish and entrepreneurs to fly. Maybe schemes to help young entrepreneurs kickstart a business. But there's also, what's the cost of that? We've seen it in this COVID pandemic, the arguments about whether we should have come out of lockdown earlier or later or all that jazz. It's all that balance. And we in the Greens were more on the side of public health. We thought the health of you and I and anyone watching is more important than a few extra quid in the pocket of a billionaire.
Yeah.
It's that balance. we fight for social justice, for that equality of opportunity, true equality of opportunity. Where if you want to start a business, if you've got a fantastic idea to start a business, we should be providing a scheme, or at least pointing to a scheme, giving people more support towards schemes to help them start those own businesses.
Alright, you lot. Say aye.
And we should be supporting our environment and our wildlife. We're the Green Party nationally are proposing a new GCSE in natural history.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Really good.
I'm fascinated by nature, so kids are fascinated by nature.
Getting out of the classroom more, getting out,
absolutely,
doing trips to places like this.
Yeah. And how to look after their environment, and because natural history is our history. We've grown up in conjunction with nature. It's only in the last sort of 100 years we've been destroying nature. Nature will win. Yeah, nature will win. It might be at the expense of extermination of humanity, but nature will win.
It's funny because I approached the Environment Agency at a consultation, and I posed that question to him about what's their viewpoint on their own report stating that they have to protect the ecosystems and stuff like that, blah blah blah. But then they're working with Homes England to balance the equation. So
the Environment Agency has had its funding cut again, so they're having to prioritise pollution events. Yeah, and it means they can't prosecute people like United Utilities who dump sewage, partially treated sewage, still full of loads of toxins, into our rivers or into the canal behind us. It's affecting our water sources. I can see the river behind us, the canal behind us, the brook. It's brown.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be brown. It should be much bluer, much clearer. It's brown because it's been pumped full of rubbish from United Utilities, or from fly tipping, who get away with it because the Environment Agency can't afford to prosecute or chase up and investigate because the Tories have cut the funding. Yet the Tories have also last month wiped I think it was £17.5 million off. They've wiped it off because it was given during the pandemic fraudulently. Instead of going to get it from those fraudsters, they've just gone, well, £17.5 million could do so much. It'd be fantastic. It's basically the deficit that Halton Borough Council is going to hit in this financial year. It could plug that gap. Yet the Tories go, we can wipe that. But it was stolen from the Tories, and they just can't be bothered going to get it back.
But they can be bothered with other people who owe money. They have to chase us to heaven and earth for that.
If we're behind on our tax, like I had a rotten tax bill a couple of years ago, because I'd switched between jobs. My new employer made a mistake with my tax. I owed £500. I got a ridiculously threatening letter.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, I had to pay it, and I did, because that's what I owed. And I'm happy paying my taxes.
It's an oops moment, isn't it? It's like, oops, okay, then fair enough.
And I'm happy paying my taxes and national insurance. I'd be happy paying that if it was spent responsibly. That's my problem. Yeah. Tories are already starting to electioneer for 2024 general election. Yeah. And they're already trying to sweeten things up for election period then to allow them to gain power again and renege on all their promises. They always do. But I'm happy paying. I'd even be happy with tax going slightly up if I knew it was just being spent responsibly. So maintain those levels. Or, council tax, it has to go up. It's had to. That's what this council have decided. But spend it responsibly. Don't waste it. Yeah. Make sure there's the best value out of every penny. And that's one of the other things I will really fight for, the best value. Because people pay in that money, we're given tax revenue and stuff from the funding from the government, that must be spent absolutely responsibly. It is a huge responsibility. Nothing frivolous, nothing wasted.
Well, in this current climate of what we're struggling with right now, we really do need to start looking at things, as you say, analytically. Someone like you looking at it would be perfect.
Yeah.
You know,
I've had to be very careful in the past balancing my own finances. I've been in the position recently, during the pandemic, of having to choose between heating and eating, between filling up my car with fuel or having dinner that night. I've had to make that choice and I only had to do it for about 6 months. It was horrible.
and the mental health impact of that, it must be terrible for most people.
It nearly drove me to suicide, because it was so tough. For the people who live in Halton, who have to deal with that on a day-to-day basis,
And for a long time, like years.
my heart breaks for them. And this council's doing nothing for them. Nothing at all to help. The Tories in government are doing nothing to help. They're actively cutting universal credit, refusing to put 20 quid a month back on.
So do you understand how people have become so blasé? The voters just do not know where to turn.
Yeah, and I can understand. Like, voter turnout for the all-out elections last year in Daresbury Mr and Sandymoor was 33%. That was actually one of the higher percentages.
Okay.
That was one of the. There's multiple causes. Sometimes people just don't know they're not registered to vote automatically. So if you're not sure, you can always ask the elections people at Halton Borough Council. I think they'll have the email address on the website. Email them and ask, am I on the electoral roll? It's good for people's credit score as well.
Yeah. Actually, funny enough, I just got my card today.
I got mine yesterday. Yeah. So you can actually turn up and have your say. But I'm not in favour of compulsory voting, but I am in favour of making voting much easier to do.
Yeah.
Making postal vote much more accessible. So if you're not going to be around on polling day, people can apply for a postal vote now. Apply for it. It'll be sent out on the 21st of April and return ASAP.
Well, I think the main problem people have is ID, using ID with voting, which
You don't need ID.
yeah, but they're trying to make it so you have to prove you.
Yeah, and that is another big problem. A lot of people who can't afford it don't have ID. They don't have Why have a driving license if you can't drive? Why have a passport if you're not going to be travelling anywhere? They're 70, 80 quid a pop. I legally changed my name last year, again, to distance myself from my family, due to lots of reasons. And I'm much happier with my new name. So some people may see some stuff with Rich Westman on, but I'm now Rich Kinchin. It's my grandfather's name. But I've had to wait. I'm hoping to do it in the next month or two, to send off my passport to change the name on that. Because it's going to be like 75, 80 quid. I need to factor that into my budget. And I'm not able to afford to do that until, I think, next month. If not month after. I'm having to balance it quite a lot.
It's a symbolic thing to do that, isn't it?
Yeah. So if you don't have one of those, you don't have photo ID, how are you going to be able to vote? You're not.
It'll remove people from it.
If I'm being incredibly cynical, the people who won't have ID will also not vote Tory. That's the demographic. It's younger people, less well-off people. Your typical non-Tory voters will not have ID. So it's a really cynical move. But
I don't think it would happen though.
It's a very political game-playing move by the Conservatives to try and rig the system. I attended a webinar last week about local democracy and how we can improve it. And one of the biggest things is remove first past the post. bring in proportional representation.
We tried that. We did try that.
That vote was
years ago, wasn't it?
That vote was nonsense, because it wasn't true proportional representation.
Wasn't it?
No. That vote was rigged as well, because it was the lesser of two evils. There are better systems out there. The Electoral Reform Society, of which I'm a member, has some excellent proposals on how to both improve local government and national government in terms of PR and lots of other ways as well, communication. And like in England, it's typically around 2,000 to 3,000 people per councillor. Places like France and Italy, it's just double digits. It's between 15 and 90 people represented by a councillor. So we're almost a really undemocratic country the way it is. But the only way to change is to bring different people in, like the Greens, who will fight for that change and do all we can to push it through. It's a long game.
Yeah,
it's a very long game.
We can't stay the same. We can't stay as we are now. We've got to this point now.
The system rewards those already in power.
Yeah.
So they ain't going to change the system. The best thing we can do is disrupt the system.
Yes. I totally agree.
And the best way to do that is say, right, I'm not voting Labour, I'm not voting Tory, I'm voting for a real alternative.
Yeah, because there isn't any real alternatives unless you're...
Unless you vote Green.
Yes. And one thing I want to ask, by the way, is, because I asked Ian this question, Runcorn, Halton, do you believe it's a Cheshire place or Liverpool City region? Because I know this is the reaction I got from Ian as well. It's putting you on the...
Yeah, you're controversial. So I joke with friends that I live in Runcorn, in the borough of Halton, in the county of Cheshire, in the Liverpool City region with a Warrington postcode. So, it's a total mishmash.
It is, yeah.
But as to whether... I think we are where we are with it.
Yeah.
We are whether we like it or not in the Liverpool City region.
Yeah.
We are whether we like it or not. Brexit happened, whether we like it or not. Not. But we've got to work with what we've got. We've got to work with it. And take any opportunities that we can. With an opportunity with the Liverpool City region to start cooperating more with them, like an integrated public transport system.
Yeah, exactly.
When we were going for the Liverpool Metro Mayor last year with Gary Cargill, who's standing in Norton North.
I recognise him.
Yeah, same guy. He's standing for Norton North Councillor this year. We had Steve Rotherham on the ropes. Any interviews, any hustings, Steve was scared of the Greens. Because we challenged, because we questioned, and because we are proposing something different. In fact, the Conservative and Lib Dem candidates didn't even turn up to 95% of the hustings or interviews. Yeah. They really didn't. Ridiculous. Because they don't care.
Or they don't think they've got a chance and they don't turn up either way. Like the Tories don't here.
Yeah. It's like in Daresbury Mr Sandymoor. Labour don't stand a chance. It's either Conservative or Green. So you can either have same old or brand new. But it's...
Do you think the Greens stand a really good chance with what's going on right now? People starting to wake up, and obviously not just locally but nationally.
Well, local elections tell Parliament the mood of the country. It's almost like the midterms in the US.
Yeah.
The best way to tell the Conservatives in government and tell Boris and Sajid and Rishi we deserve better, because we're not going to get a general election until 2024, I reckon. The best way to tell them that you're not happy with them is to vote Green at this election. That's that's across the country.
How important is it? Because, like with this development, locally, we need to give them a bloody nose, don't we?
Yeah, it's the best way to tell them, right, we want better. We want different. And it then does feed in. We are, as Greens, we're ordinary people. I went to a actually quite rubbish little comprehensive school back in Derbyshire.
Don't mince your words, like.
I went to a comp in Derbyshire, I've fought for everything I've had to work really hard for it, and I'm still struggling, despite working ridiculously hard for what I've already got. For those who haven't made it there, it's really, really tough. And yet we see in Parliament, it's the privately educated elite who have never done a proper day's work in their lives, or it's people who have been politicians their whole career. As Greens, we're ordinary people who want to make a difference in our community. We want to do what's right for the people in our community. We're not career politicians. You're not getting politicians' answers from me. You're getting
this is why I like not just you, but Andrew and anyone in the Greens, because whenever I ask, you turn up. I mean, I know Mike did, but the problem is that I'm only getting platitudes.
It's so they can cover their own backs later. So they can say, well, I actually said this. But that's not what... They'll say one thing and mean another. I'm studying to be a barrister. And how you phrase things is key. You can say one thing, mean another. And that is what a lot of the politicians do. And it's ridiculous. As Greens, we say what we mean. If I muck up, I'm happy to be told. I'm always happy to be proved wrong. But I will stand by decisions that I think are right for me and for the people I'm hopefully elected to represent. Having the guts as an ordinary person, ordinary resident with a pretty working class background to say, hang on, I want better than what we've got. Why should we put up with this that we've got? I think it could really shake the system up and really worry the current incumbents, and whether that's the Tories in Westminster or the Labour people in Runcorn Town Hall, having someone different on there.
Well, electing two, or three, in one borough would be a massive wake-up call.
It would be fantastic if we got all three of us in.
Especially because this area, which the castle, you, anyone else, we need to show that people aren't happy politically. Yeah. Not just put posters up, we need to show politically.
Yeah, and the best way people can do that is at the ballot box.
Yes.
Get Greens elected. That's actually the trending hashtag for this election.
Is it?
Hashtag Get Greens elected.
Oh, I'll use that then in this video then. There's so much I wanted to discuss about not only politically how you are, but also yourself and where you come from. So let's tie it all up then with you as a person. I see you as someone who's got a tough exterior, but fluffy inside.
I've been called many things. Fluffy is not necessarily one of them.
Well, on the inside.
I think I'm just real. I say it how it is. I don't, as you've seen, I don't tend to mince my words.
Yeah.
But I'm a bit of a musical theatre fan, and there's a wonderful phrase from Stephen Sondheim's Into the Woods. I'm not good, I'm not nice, I'm just right. Which is
always right.
Sometimes what I am. But I try to be good.
Yeah.
I try to be nice. And I always strive to be right. And do what's best and what is right and just for people. And yeah, I know we've covered a lot, and there's so much more.
To cover so much more.
And I'm very happy to chat to people. And perhaps you can put the email address and my phone number on on this video. I'll pass you the details. And on Facebook, facebook.com/Warrington Green Party. I'd have liked it to have said Warrington and Halton Green Party. But it was set up years ago when it was just the Warrington Green Party. But I'm keeping it for continuity. Yeah. But follow us on Facebook in Daresbury and Sandymoor Greens on Facebook, which is Andrew Dyer's page, which I'll be taking over shortly.
And so, yeah, what I was going to say actually, what's the best way for the public to support you? Is it to come out to demonstrations? Is it to come out to your Facebook and retweet? And what's the key dates that people need to support you, really?
Yeah, so the first key date is, of course, 5th of May. 5th of May 2022. Please get out and vote Green. Whichever ward you're in, if there is a green candidate on your ballot paper, please put that cross in it, or a tick, or whatever. You don't need ID, you don't need to take your polling card with you, just go along. All you need is your name and a green vote. It'd be too rude to say if you're going to vote someone else, don't come, isn't it? But we want a fair and open.
Well, the thing is, a couple of elections ago, I did not know who to vote for, so I still turned up, but I spoiled the ballot paper because it's still taking part in the.
That's a really good way to protest as well. Yeah. Say if you don't have a green on the ballot, scroll through it, cross through everything, make it, and then drop it in, and that is also looked at. It is a message.
It's counted as a spoiled paper.
Yep. Yeah. And weird bit of trivia, in Daresbury Mr Sandymoor, there were 0 spoiled ballots last year.
Really?
There were none whatsoever, which is quite rare. Yeah. There's usually a few. There were absolutely none.
So they essentially knew what they wanted, you know.
And they wanted green. So they voted green. So it's a chance to do it again. Voting green. The other key date is again, to mid-April is the deadline for, I think it's the 20th of April, your deadline to apply for a postal vote. If you're not going to be around on the day, or on the day itself, I've got an exam, but when that exam finishes, I'm going to go down and vote. But if I was away somewhere, I have been in the past, away at uni, apply for that postal vote as a one-off or continuing, just to make sure your voice is heard.
Yeah, because we do need turnout to be pretty strong, especially in this ward, your ward, Castle ward, wherever with the Greens are.
Wherever
we need people out.
Yeah. Local council elections have some of the worst turnouts, some of the lowest turnouts. They really do, especially between general elections. So every single vote counts.
It does.
Every single one could make a difference. Andrew was elected by a margin of 20 votes.
Really? Didn't know it was that.
It was very, very tight. We were biting our nails till the very end at that count. Oh, our hearts were in our mouths. It was so happy.
Yeah.
So we know how tight this is going to be.
I do think you stand a good chance.
Who's thinking about voting green, please, just. It takes 5 minutes. It'll take 5 minutes. Or couple it with meeting up with friends. Say to your neighbours or friends locally, oh, heading out to vote. Do you fancy meeting up for a brew afterwards? Just however it works for you. But we're also open to giving people lifts to polling stations. We obviously can't inform your vote, but we'll give lifts and help you get there. Just get in touch with us if you are really struggling. We can help.
I mean, I'm hoping to interview as many of the candidates as possible. I'm not completely supporting one candidate or another. I'm trying to get your voice out, and to me, you're the viable candidate for change, as opposed to the other really big ones, which is Conservative and Labour. Labour are the ones who would get in. So that's why I'm more enthusiastic.
Yeah, and if I can sort of sum it up in 3 words, it's a fairer, greener community. That's what we want.
I feel like I have to end the interview now with that. That's a really good thing. But we really do need more people like you. Analytical, fair, balanced. Which this is not.
And open to conversation. Open that dialogue. Between, if I'm elected councillor, I welcome suggestions, both positive and negative, of how Runcorn, Daresbury, Sandymoor, how it can be improved. Because it all helps feed in it, and I'm not quiet, as you know. I am not quiet. I will make voices heard.
And you will. I know you will. And you're the perfect candidate.
I've got a big mouth.
Well, you need to raise your voice over the bells, don't you?
Yeah, true.
And you know, you've got a good grip on things as well. But Sandymoor, Daresbury needs a person like you in charge right now.
And hopefully, that's what. So everyone, if they do vote green, vote me in. I would do my utmost for everyone to represent them honestly, with integrity, and openly.
Best of luck.
Thank you very much for your time.
And thank you for watching, everyone. If you like all the details are in the description, and yeah, let's get this.
Description's down there, isn't it?
Well,
Down there somewhere.
I don't like to point because it depends on the frame. But never mind. Anyway, thank you. See you later.